employee, Tyler Witt, VP of US Mid-Market Sales. Tyler, how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, Joe. You know I always do better when I get to speak with you, right?
Well, of course, of course. What Tyler is referring to there, we've had a number of conversations on all sorts of podcasts and webinars. If you want to go and check out more of those, go to leadforensics.com/webinars or leadforensics.com/podcast. You'll find a plethora of really interesting conversations on there, some of them featuring Tyler Witt himself. So, yes, now we've got the opening gambit out of the way, Tyler. We'll do a little plug for our previous conversations and let's get onto this one, talking
There you
about
go. Yeah.
building a high-performing sales team. So, my first question to you is this: what is the first thing, the first factor you consider when you're looking to build a high performance sales team or even improve a sales team?
So I was thinking about this when you kind of sent this over, and there's a couple different ways to start this. But I was thinking, to your point, we kind of chatted a few times, and there was something that I thought would be a good foundation on this one. So I'm gonna give you just a quick, 2-second backstory here. Is I'd worked at a business some time ago, many moons ago, and we were doing quite well, and we started having an attrition problem. People were leaving, and we're losing to competition. So competitive sales forces were poaching the salespeople, and obviously a big issue. So anyway, I met with the CEO. We and sat down, and I remember I said the one thing, and this was from my days in the mortgage industry. I realized, people just they follow the pay. So I'd said to the CEO was this: the biggest thing for me is this: you create an environment where the people working there will evangelize working there. Like, to the point of they stop other people and they're proud to be working there. Now you can do that through product, but you do that, a little bit, but I would say like you do that through pay, you do that through, incentives, you do that through culture, like you do all these things and it's a lot of work and it is pretty costly, but once you do that, that's that foundation for me. And what happens is then everybody wants to come and work for you.
Mm.
All of a sudden everybody wants to come work for you. And then you've got this whole pick of who works for you. And if you think about companies like ADP or Salesforce or some of these large companies out there, they nailed that. Google, right? They nailed this. Like people who aren't even in those industries know that's a great place to work. And so then they have their pick. And that to me, that's the foundation. So that'd be kind of a, interesting way to start this is talking about that of like how you create that so that everybody that works for you tells everybody else, and now everybody wants to work for you, and you have resumes coming in, and then that's the best way, I think, to kind of start that process going.
So let me reflect that straight back
Yeah.
to you then, Tyler. So what are those factors? What are the things that you need to develop in the company for people to come in and start going, hey, this is a really great place to work?
Yeah. I mean, number one is obviously, pay, right? From a salesperson, and it's crass. It's so crass to talk about. I know, but like for salespeople, it is about like, yeah, basic is a part of it, but like that comp structure, right? Is the comp structure, is it fair, but is it easily digestible? You need to set up, your attainments, and then that's challenging for businesses because you do have to balance like profitability, CAC cost, that kind of stuff with the compensation kind of side of it. I will plug here because lead forensics is one thing they've nailed. That comp is, I mean, again, like, so there's a plug right there. Anybody watching this thinking maybe I want to jump ship? Yeah, we've nailed that part, that comp part. Let me tell you, it is amazing here. That's why I'm comfortable kind of saying these points because we've gotten it right, right? So, but outside of that, like culture, and I know culture is a buzzword, but like to me, culture is as simple as like, do people come in and do they feel secure? And that's maybe a weird thing to say, but like, do they feel like secure if they give feedback? Is it heard? Is it quelled? Right? Do they constantly worry about losing their job? Do they know promotion paths? Do they those kind of things? That security is a big part, and that's tough because I don't know, especially in the U.S., that your employees are always going to show that same kind of loyalty, but I think as a business, you have to show more loyalty to them before they reciprocate it back to you. But like that's basically it. I mean, I really do think it comes down to, compensation, culture, right, are sort of the big things. And there's a lot that goes into those, so I don't mean to, downplay either one of those or minimize them, but I mean, that's basically it for me.
It's funny actually, as you answered that, you reminded me of something my father used to say actually. It was he would say that his loyalty to a company would last until the end of the month. And then by the time that, he got paid, he's like,
Yeah,
"Right, you've bought another month of my loyalty. It's absolutely fine." So
yeah.
it's about so what you're saying is it's about creating an opportunity to show your employee that, okay, if that's the case with you, our loyalty actually lasts a bit longer than that. And here's why. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely. And because it's not all money, right? Like people will, again, people will stay at jobs that, maybe they could get a little higher pay this and that, but like maybe they have a great leader that's teaching them something. Maybe, like, and it really is for business. Like, I think more than ever, it is challenging because you have to invest so much, and when I say invest, yes, literally, right, the cost, but like, do you have, a world-class training program? Salespeople, think about it, and I won't throw names out there because it'd be kind of rude, but like there are companies out there that really don't pay the best. Like I know their pay structures, whatever. They're getting away, maybe on below kind of market averages, but they have world class training. And people know that. And so they go there to kind of get the skills, cut their teeth or whatever. And the companies, their trade off is they get a year, 2 years out of somebody, high performance, before, yeah, that skill set's probably going to move on. But like, yeah, I think, when you talk about that, that it is a lot of like that investment of, yeah, pay, training, all types of support like 401k, all these like, whatever it is, right? I mean, those are just some of the basic things, but like, I think as much as we can give back, to the employees, that's what creates somebody like evangelizing working there. They say all these amazing things. It can be as simple as like getting somebody a new laptop. It can be as simple as, giving them shirts, right? You see these people running around like wearing, the logo of the company. And I think I have one on here, but I won't do a t-shirt on here, right? I think I do have a Leaf Forensic t-shirt, but like they're running around like that kind of stuff. Make them evangelists for the business. And all of that is stuff that, almost has to be, a whole department kind of running that to feed that into the rest of the business. So they're out there saying that, because then again, you have, people evangelizing the business, those resumes come in, and then you can start getting into, the competencies that you want to talk about in terms of, right, what's the best fit for this company, blah blah blah. But if you're looking at that without ignoring how do I create demand for this position first, you're not seeing the forest through the trees.
Mm. Something I had a conversation with somebody recently, and it was about sort of upskilling and necessary skills as we go into this new year.
Yep.
So for you then, because you mentioned it in part of your answer about the training and learning the new
Yep.
skills, that sort of thing. This particular conversation went round to the idea that a certain role type will become defunct because of AI. Do you think there's any sort of, if we're talking about building a high performing sales team, are there any elements within that sales team that you think could go that way, or are going to have to be thought of, the training of which are going to have to be thought of slightly differently as AI in particular, or, any other factors like comes to fruition a bit more so than it has in the past year? And also, does that question make sense?
I mean, are you asking, do I think there are jobs at risk because of AI? Is that what you're
Or
kind of?
are there other skills, I suppose? Yeah, maybe that's it. Are there other skills that a high performing sales team could pick up right now to sit them in the best possible chance of having reducing that chance of their job becoming obsolete? Maybe that makes more sense.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to AI, what is it? The Turing test? What's it called?
Which the robot convincing you it's human, the
Yeah, the
Turing test. Yeah.
yeah, Turing test. There it is, right? Like, I think we're a long ways away from that. But in terms of like, look, anything that's an algorithm will is at risk for AI. And I'm not going to get in the weeds of this because it will ruffle feathers, but the bookends of a business, your entry level roles, a lot of that is algorithmic behavior, right? Yeah, I mean, and on the flip side, the bookend, top end, I think a lot of that's algorithmic, right? You look at the business and you say like, right, here's the information. What do we do? That's an algorithm. So I think, I think there's already some AI like CEOs and stuff like that out there, right? And they're testing those out. So I do think from that standpoint, like the bookends, but then that middle, and I think top salespeople, and of course this is going to be my own bias, and I'm probably doing all sorts of, justification here, to get to this conclusion. But I think for salespeople, that that ability to live in the emotional, state, right? That's what's going to kind of keep our top level jobs safe. So I do, for some time, not forever.
Mm.
That will change as well. But yeah, I think, and we should lean into it for AI, lean into it, like predictive dialing, cadences around, pipeline projection, or like, your pipeline, or even forecasting, like all of that stuff. Like, that's going to all be outsourced to AI, and as it should be, to where a salesperson, the name of the game, and it's a little off topic, but succinctly put, the salesperson's job is to be selling. So put the salesperson on the call selling all the other stuff, which is, whether it was first the phone, then the CRM, then the emailing, whatever it is, right? And now AI, that's all meant to take away non-selling activity so that the salesperson can focus in on the sales activity.
So
I think I
listen,
answered that. You
no,
tell
you answered that wonderfully, Tyler. It was a slightly tricky question I gave to you there. It was a bit of a curveball, but yeah. So let's get back to sort of an individual on a team. Let's say that
Mhm.
the culture's great, all that sort of thing. Like they're
Yeah.
in role, right, and they're
Yeah. Yeah.
loving it. Okay, they're loving the job. What are the key characteristics, do you think, that make up a successful salesperson?
Yeah, I think, and if you on kind of LinkedIn enough, looking at different posts, I'm not saying anything brand new here, but yeah. So once you've created this environment and you've got all these resumes, piling in, people want to work there, then you're going through and you're looking for, IQ, EQ, and AQ. So for me, those are the things that, like, it's just that simple, and you can, parse those out however you want and dig into them. But IQ, like, there does have to be some bit of, and I don't mean like IQ in the sense of like, oh, like these IQ test kind of things. I guess it's the way I think of it is this: is you can take in information, you can learn it, and you can apply it. That's huge. Like, you have to be able to, and do that very efficiently and effectively. Like, not just like, of course, everybody can take in information, apply it, but how quickly can you do it? The people who can do it very quickly, they do well in sales. Because if I can, give you a training and you go out and immediately start applying it, so you understood everything in the training and you're able to go out and start applying it very quickly, that means I can now teach you something new and something new. If I have to kind of spend months teaching the same thing before you can apply it, your sales curve is wildly slowed down, right? Obviously, your EQ, your ability to engage, excite, motivate, read people. Like, you have to have that emotional component to it. And then your AQ, the adaptability. How quickly can you adapt? Because the markets are going to change. Your deal situations are going to change. Your company's going to change, right? You're going to have all of these things about you. How well are you built in order to adapt, right? To deal with those kind of situations. So to me, that's it. And then, and you go through all the different things of how you get there, assessment tests, interviews, questions, this, that, and the other. But basically, you find somebody that, excels in those three areas, you're going to have a world-class salesperson.
And then to sort of flip that on its head, then, if we're saying, this is what makes a successful salesperson,
Yeah.
what makes a successful sales leader? And are
Uh,
they wildly different?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have those characteristics for sure, right? Again, because you have to. I think in almost any position, you kind of have to have those. For a sales leader, I say it comes down to basically, two things, right? There's only, in my mind, I've always thought, you've got to hit your numbers and you got to keep morale high. So from a sales leader perspective, like, that is my true belief, is that you come in every day and you have to find a way for your team to get to their number, and then you have to train on that. You have to support, like, you have to be, again, you have to be a world class trainer. You have to know sales inside and out. You have to know how to read the numbers. And again, so it gets back to, yes, you have to have the IQ, the EQ, and the AQ, right? Again, you have to understand how to go, what data do you need to go get? How do you interpret that data? You have to be able to go train on it, right? So you have to be able to apply that data into the real world and get them better. But that's how if when I'm working with a leader, it's like, right, let's focus in on these two things, right? How do you get your number? How do you keep your team's morale as high as possible? And if you falter in any one of those areas, right, it doesn't matter if your team's all happy, but they're missing their numbers, like, yeah, but it also doesn't matter if you're hitting your numbers at all costs, because you
Mm.
will burn your team out and you'll have a turnover, and then you're just having to replace your team. And so the team that's hitting the numbers today will not be there in 6 months, 8 months, whatever. So that's how I kind of think about it from a leader's perspective.
Well, let's go. This is something that I think we have spoken about previously. So I always knew I was going to ask you about this in this particular
Yeah.
conversation, Tyler. But um, developing that mindset then
Mhm.
to help keep morale at the same time as keep an effective team. What are the key factors to consider with the mindset of your team, do you think?
Any relationship is built on respect. If you don't respect your workers, or they don't respect you, you're done for. You're just done for. So, like, you know, I think a lot of businesses, and I mean a lot of businesses, they have this insane notion that their employees should feel lucky to be there. I've I could never, you could give me 1,000 lifetimes and I could never wrap my head around that perspective. The employee is not lucky to be there. I mean, maybe there's probably a few. There's probably some, like, CROs out there who have no business being in that chair or whatever, right? But like, that's such a small, right? The exception proves the rule kind of thing. And I can say it for me. I'm not picking on CROs. I'm just saying in general, right? Um, the reality is the company is lucky to have that employee. And if you, again, as a leader, if you show up every day, like, I am lucky that this person came back today, right? Like, I am fortunate that this person is putting in the effort that they are. Those kind of things. And you approach it from, again, we talk about humility, and oftentimes, a lot of these rules we have, these, they got to be humble, they got to have drive, we apply that to the front line, but it starts kind of getting diluted. And, because, oh, us, people at the top, right? Woe is me. We don't, they don't understand our problems. Like, no, no, that same attributes never, ever change as you go up. And if you maintain that, you'll be fine, right? If you be, humble, um, yeah, I think, that's basically, for me, from how do you get that from your team? That's it. Like, you treat them like people, and you maintain that kind of respect for them and gratefulness that they're there, just that they came into work that day. Like, thank God.
Just the relief. Just, oh, whew, ain't got to worry about that for today.
Yeah, it's validation that, all right, I'm not doing too bad. They showed up. Like, and that's how it is. Like, I hope I'm not making their lives harder. Like, that's it. Like, that's my big thing. Like, I hope my team is their job isn't harder because of me. You know what I mean? And that's, yeah. I'm sure they tell you sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. I don't know.
You imagine that? We'll just bring one in now. Right. And actually, joining the call now is one of your employees. They have some things to say to you, Tyler. Let me tell you.
Be therapeutic for them, I bet.
um, how do you ensure that your sales team are customer centric? How can you ensure that the customer is at the forefront of their minds when they're picking up the phone and writing emails and getting in contact with people?
That's a really good question. And I do think that that's tricky for any sales org, because they I think it's something that the sales orgs wrestle with a lot. And they here's why, is that their whole goal is to get to target, right? Now they know, right? They know that, how do they get to target? You keep your pipeline full, you solve your customers' problems, that kind of stuff, right? These kind of sales, axioms that we discuss almost ad nauseum, right? And then they're great in theory, but, like, yeah, you get in the moment, you get on whatever, and your quarterly, your yearly, your monthly targets, just like right there in your face, staring you down, like, you know but that's resilience, that's grit. That's where when you bring in the right people and you create the right environment, to where people feel that security, then the emotions that are going to be there, they're going to be there because we're human, don't dominate their day. There are going to be times where they get, that's where the term quota breath comes from, right? Their quota is superseding their connection with the person, with the, prospect, right? And it is very, very challenging. And there are times where you can't overcome it because people are going to go on plans. They're going to be way far off, and it's really, really hard. So it's a great question because it is a daily struggle, and the best best way to combat that is earlier on. If you get the right people, you set up the right environment, you do all those things correctly, and you don't have a team full of people missing target. You don't have a team full of people that are going on pips. You don't have, whatever it is, they feel a lot more comfortable on the phone with their customers, can keep them, customer centric, but it's not always going to work. You are going to have people that, despite all your efforts, but that's a challenge. Yeah.
How do you deal with that then? So let's say there is sort of an element within the team that isn't quite, it's almost breeding almost a toxic,
Yeah.
a toxic sort of, what's the word I want to use here? It's not aura, but like,
Yeah.
yeah. So they're emitting that sort of toxicity, and perhaps they're going to influence other members of the team. How do you cope with that sort of thing?
Yeah. I mean, look, I have a saying, if it's happening to me, it's probably my fault. If it's happening to everybody, it's probably the company's fault. So like, and this is really how I run things. So if it's the one person, right, right. So in that scenario, you you obviously manage that person, this, that, and the other. But if they're negativity, you just get rid of. Like you have to manage out and then that's a tough part of being a leader, is managing people out. You're obviously going to address it. Yeah, I know. We're going to do all these things and try to do what we can. But there are some people. Look, sometimes you hire somebody in and they come in and they put on a good game face, and 30 days later, whatever, like the real them comes out. Right? Good salespeople can sell their way into a job very, very good, like very well. Right? And I don't care how good of a salesperson you are. If you have that kind of attitude, right? No one person's bigger than the club. So anyway, you cut that out as soon as possible. On the other side of that, though, not directly your question, but part of what it talks about there is, what if it's, you know, permeating the entire team? Then you have to start
Yeah.
having conversations. Why? Why is everybody out there? Why is everybody in that department giving me this one bit of feedback? Why am I hearing this time and time again? Why is this one topic, this one theme keep coming up? And then that is on me as a, okay, right, like that's clearly something me, the company, that whatever it is causing. And so then you have to go, it doesn't do any good. Adam Kroll has this great thing. You don't go kill one cockroach, you stop the infestation. So meaning if you're hearing it everywhere, it doesn't do any good to pull the one person aside and say, hey, we got to work on that mindset. You have to go find what's causing everybody to feel that way and go tackle that.
I suppose that could actually lead to certain other challenges. Perhaps it's going to be a case of, well, we'll have to do some sort of anonymous feedback form or something like
Yeah.
that, because it's not that someone's not necessarily, if someone's aggrieved for some reason, they're not necessarily going to tell you what problem is directly. So then it's kind of like, well, we do need to find out what those factors
Yeah.
are, but you're going to have to meet us halfway and at least drop in a little
Yeah.
in a suggestions box or something crazy like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I do that. I do a internal thing. I do it twice per year, um, and I try to expand it to as many people as I can. Like, and the hardest thing is getting people to write the comments. So they do a little. There's like these things that has a scorecard. But anyway, I want it, but I do it. I do it twice per year. Um, yeah, I mean, they're really helpful. And that goes back to cultures. Like, one of the challenges there that a lot of businesses encounter is getting people, they're anonymous, to believe that it's anonymous, to believe that there's not going to be repercussions. And I've seen that in businesses before where the anonymous feedback, it's not honest because they don't feel even secure enough to be giving that kind, you know what I mean? So, and that right there is, an issue of a larger problem.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
symptom of a larger problem. Yeah.
I suppose it does speak a lot to lead forensics, I suppose, because every single bit of feedback I've been happy to go, oh, I don't mind if they know that I said this, because it's
I know.
all the time. So,
Yeah.
yes, it's all pretty good, to be honest. So,
Eh, yeah, and again, that's a symptom of the right people, right? When you have the right people, like
mm,
the things like speaking up and this and that, like they feel confident to do that. Not in a brash way, they do it in a constructive way. But yeah, that's all part of a healthy relationship. That's and that's I think something a lot of people forget is a healthy relationship, mutual respect, open communication, right, back and forth, and honest feedback. And what's the book, Radical Candor, right? People love, but like it's really hard sometimes because that humility, right, and that 'cause the ego starts taking over, um, to actually get that kind of like that candid feedback from individuals. But yeah, take it and say, you have to say, I'm not perfect. I know I can get better. Yeah, it's challenging though. It is challenging.
absolutely, Tyler. I am going to start to wrap up our conversation here, and
Yeah.
as usual, you've offered up so much insight, and I really appreciate you just having this conversation with me. But just before I come back to you for one final question, this webinar is obviously brought to you by Lead Forensics, as actually are Tyler and myself. Lead Forensics is software which identifies anonymous visitors to your B2B website, showing you their customer journey, what links they've clicked on, pages they've looked at, and all in real time. If you'd like to book an obligation-free trial or sit a demo with us, then let me know on the poll, which is on screen right now. I'll leave this up on screen as we come to the end of our conversation. Also, there's another link currently on screen right now. It's our webinar feedback survey form. I would love for you to fill that out and tell me exactly what you enjoyed about this week's webinar. So, Tyler, I'm now going to come back to you for one final question. You know what question this is. I've asked you every single time you've appeared on here. What is the one key takeaway you would like everybody who's listened to this conversation today to take away with them?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me, and that's kind of why I thought I'd start with it, is just like if everybody knows, everybody's read the book Good to Great and the stuff like that, and get the right people on the bus. But you have to make sure the right people want to get on your bus. That
Yes.
is, to me, that's probably the most important thing. And, it's why I try really hard. Like I come on a podcast like this and I do some LinkedIn stuff and I do, community outreach because I want people to want to work for me. I want them to want to, and I just try really, really hard to make sure that, that happens. And I think that's the biggest missing piece for a lot of businesses, a lot of leaders, is have you created that environment that people are out there, you know, on a Sunday afternoon or on a Wednesday morning or whenever it is, and they're talking to somebody and they're evangelizing your business. When you do that, then people want to get on your bus. That's when all of the other stuff you're talking about, and when I say you, I mean, anybody that be watching this, your competencies, your trainings, your this and that, how do we do that? That's when that stuff becomes applicable, but not until people want to get on your bus do you even have the option to have the right people on the bus, because people always have a choice of where they work, where they, all that kind of stuff. So do your best to make sure they want to come work for you.
Excellent stuff as always, Tyler. Thank you so much for joining me once again. Do keep an eye on League Forensic Socials for news of our upcoming webinars, and we will see you again very, very soon. But for now, Tyler, thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe.